Say it again, right? Until I know you're all well fed, so that shouldn't be a barrier to saying good morning, right? So good morning to all of you. Much better. I'm here to welcome you. I am stepping in on behalf of the chair of our Department of Community Health and Preventive Medicine, the wonderful Dr. Tabia Akintobi. She was out of town, was not going to be able to make it back. She looked at several different flights to try to get back in town in time to get here, but she was not going to be making it. So she asked me if I could come and to welcome all of you and thank you all for your presence here and for your participation in this event. Again, my name is Alex Crosby. We're so glad that you could come and could participate here in this event hosted by the Health Promotion and Resources Center, fantastically led by Dr. Mary Langley. They have changed the landscape in regards to some of the activities that they've been involved in, from Time for Teens to this statewide network. Some of the activities that they've been able to bring together, not only in the state of Georgia, but also doing work nationally. So they deserve a lot of credit along with you for being able to promote what's been going on here in Atlanta, in Georgia, and across the United States. One of the things that I just want to remind you of, and I'm sure that those of you who have looked at the agenda have seen that this is really an all-star lineup that they have prepared for you from yesterday through today. So I really want to give you a charge for the rest of the symposium. And that's really kind of three things. And that's really to come out of this symposium with some advancement in what you know. So there are going to be speakers that are going to present things that you are going to learn some more about what might be useful to you. The other thing is not only just what you know, but who you know. So part of this symposium is also to help you in regards to networking. Because there are going to be people that you meet that you say, man, I wish I need to know something more about their program. And I need to make a connection with this particular program. So I want you to also do that too. So what you know, who you know, and then some actions that you can take. Are there going to be some strategies or some approaches that you're going to hear about today and hopefully yesterday also that you can say, I can take that back. We can start doing something like that, or we can take an adaptation of what I've heard and now start to put it into place in my community, in my neighborhood, in my school, in my city. So hopefully I'd like for you to kind of take that on and try to do those three things as you go throughout the day, as you learn from what happened yesterday, is find out a little bit more what you know, who you know, and some actions you can take. So again, thank you very much for being here. I want to thank Ms. Broussard for inviting me to come and to talk with you today, along with the rest of the HPRC. Thank you, and good symposium to you.
Good morning. Good to see you all again. The statewide network is innovating, impacting, and like we said yesterday, I don't want to take up too much time because we really want to hear what Mr. Braswell has to say. But again, we know that we are developing, testing, and implementing very, very important strategies, curricula, apps, and a toolkit that is going to help parents in Georgia. Today, we are going to see our developers. We are going to hear presenters and speakers who are resources throughout the state of Georgia, who we are partnering with through the statewide network. We see all of the resources that we have highlighted, that we will continue to highlight throughout this grant. I'm going to jump from up here and we will see Mr. Braswell. Pastor Dortch is going to speak about fundamentals of fatherhood, which is one of our innovations that will soon become an evidence-based intervention. I will take up no more time. Here we are.
All right, good morning, everyone. Seen some of you all last night. They put me on in place of Judge Hatchett, so I'm gonna act like I'm her for just a second. All right, can we do that? I'm honored to stand to present to you some of the things that I'm working on with the fatherhood curriculum. It's a playbook. How many ever played sports? How many know how to play sports? You know, just raising your hand up don't mean that but anyway, I was thinking about this idea of a playbook because I'm an ex-NBA player in my mind. I really did. I did play. Now, don't get me wrong. I was real good. They just didn't select me, but I was good. It really was their fault, not mine. But nonetheless, when I was thinking about this, I got 4 minutes. Oh, I thought she said I had 4 minutes. I'm sorry. But I'm used to that when they do like that at church. But so when I was thinking about that, I tried to think about what would be my theme for this. And the theme of my playbook is to empower and to engage the fathers and the sons to have a better relationship. It wasn't trying to recreate a wheel, but give them some tools and strategies that can help them. And with that, I have 5 modules that I use within the playbook. And I just want to share a couple of them with you if you don't mind. With the modules, I want to use strategies, tools, but I wanted to use it from a basketball standpoint because that was my skill. That was where I thought I was good at. And so with that, the first drill is what we call the warming up exercise. And this is where the father and the son, we talk about what is fatherhood, what is adolescence. So we use that as a warming up. And since I'm here to present to you how we do it, I thought you would help me do the warming up. Could everyone stand if you're able to stand? Yeah, that's what I said too. This is what we do as preachers at the church. You may sit down. You may sit down, I'm for real. I just wanted to, so when I leave here, I can say they did move. I got them to move, okay? But that's some of the warming up that we do with the father. We get them the chance to stretch, to open up their minds, to understand what is fatherhood, what is adolescent. The second module that we use, which is the second tip, is what we call the passing the ball. As a basketball player, I understand that this is one of the most important things because passing the basketball is known as your language. How do you talk? And so that's one of the tips we want to share with them, how to pass the ball, how to be able to have that, that relationship and giving them tips to help the father, tips to help the son. The third module is healthy relationship. We call that one-on-one. We allow the fathers to be one-on-one with the sons, sons be one-on-one with the fathers, and that gives them an opportunity to just really be able to talk and have a great relationship, which moves us to the fourth tip, which is communication. And it's so important that the fathers understand how to talk to the adolescent know how to talk to the son. I can say growing up, I didn't have that privilege. And so with me having the opportunity to do it, I found out that it have helped so many fathers and sons to have that relationship. And then the last drill that we use is what we call decision-making. That is, how do you pass the ball? I mean, how do you handle the ball? That's ball handling. I was the point guard. And because I was point guard, I controlled the game. No one was able to shoot, no one able to do anything without me passing the ball. So that was one of the most important things of the drill. So those are the 5 modules that we have. Looking forward to sharing more with you in the future. Thank you so much.
Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. All right, so I am not Kenneth Braswell, but I'm Lawrence Wilbon, and I'm the Director for Business and Program Development for Fathers Incorporated. A little bit about me, I have about 23 years of work in the youth development and the social service world. I've worked in executive director positions, youth development programs, you name it, I've done it. But in 2017, my family and I moved to the Atlanta area. And we moved to the Atlanta area for various reasons. I had a ailing mother-in-law, and We had some friends here we wanted to reconnect with. And so we decided to uproot our family, move to the Atlanta area on what we thought was a word and a promise. And so we moved here, and as we got here, we found out very quickly that Atlanta was a different beast, right? It was about who you know in the city in order to get connected. So I applied, believe me, listen to this, to 23 positions, and nobody would hire me. I had people who would tell me over and over and over, you're so qualified, but I can't afford you. I said, let me decide that. Let me tell you if you can afford me or not. Well, I had a friend of mine in Louisville, Kentucky, who worked for the United Way, mentioned to me that I needed to meet this man that we know as Kenneth Braswell. And so in 2017, I had the opportunity to call him, and I said, I was told to meet you. Maybe there's something I can do for you, work with you or whatnot. And he said, okay, well, come to the office. So I went to the office and we sat there, and for 2 hours, we sat there and talked, and we built a relationship. I sat there and cried. And one thing he said to me, and I said, well, every door I go to and I try to get into a door and to get hired by somebody, I can't get in. And he said, well, you know who owns the door and who owns the doorknob. And so at that time, I knew that our relationship was sealed. And so I'm here today to introduce somebody who is not just my employer, but he's a friend of mine, and that's Kenneth Braswell. Kenneth Braswell he's the founder and CEO of the Fathers Incorporated. He has spent 30 years in the social service industry. He's worked for the Urban League. He's done all types of work in the great state of New York. He's the director for the National Responsible Fatherhood Clearinghouse, which is through the Federal Health and Human Services. And I think we're running 13 years with that contract right now. He's managed over $70 million in grant funds. So I say that because he knows what he's doing. All right, so you want to pick his brain. The part that I love the most is that he's a father of 5 children, I think I got that right, and a bonus nephew that he took custody of last year. And he's married to the love of his life, Tracy Braswell. So as I mentioned before, he's not only just my co-worker, my leader, but he's my friend and my brother. And I tell people, as the scripture says, when you see me, you see him. Where it says you see the Father, but you get it. But you see him. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Kenneth Braswell to the podium.
Good morning. How you guys doing this morning? Start this again. How you guys doing this morning? Y'all act like this morning was old to you. Y'all better ask somebody, right? And so thank you so much to Dr. Crosby, to Victoria, and to Mr. Dortch and Lawrence, who is right on point when he says, we're just not coworkers, we're friends and brothers. We care for each other's families. We know our kids' names. We know what schools our kids go to. That's a deeper relationship than just working on the other side of the cubicle with someone. I know Lawrence's story. I know his wife's story. He knows my story. They know my wife's story. And that permeates across every staff member that works with Fathers Incorporated. And so we're just not about this work. We are this work. And so a couple of things he said that I kind of chuckled at. My wife would have chuckled at him too when he talked about picking my brain. One of the things I know, so I was born in Brooklyn, New York. Any Brooklynites in the house? There you go. There you go. And so every year of my life, from 5th grade all the way up until I was 15 years old, my mother put me on a Greyhound bus at Grand Central Station to Pine Tops, North Carolina. And that's where I spent all of the summers of my life on my family farm that harvested both tobacco, potatoes, watermelon, corn, you name it, they did all of it.
And so while I was young, I thought it was fun, but when I got older, I realized it was just like, indentured slavery work servitude, right? I was cheap labor. And so, but what I remembered about growing up on those farms, Lawrence said that you can pick my brain, is that you couldn't go past anybody's farm and just pick their fruit without putting some money in the basket. So picking my brain costs. Because God has placed a value on what he has given to me, and I have to place that value to everyone who comes into my space, and not because I deserve it, because I earned it, right? And because my wife accounts for every minute that I'm away from the family, to which I'm not getting paid because she counts pennies. I remember one time, and I'm gonna get into, this is a dad story. When I was in the state of New York, I used to travel up and down the road to New York City because Albany, New York is about 2 hours from New York City, where I grew up. Trying to make sure, just the big green button. So I'll keep talking while I'm trying to get this work. There you go. And so every time somebody would host a meeting in New York City, they were like, Mr. Braswell, can you come down to New York to talk to us about fatherhood? Yeah, I'm coming. So 2.5 hours down to New York, into the bowels of New York City, lunch, tolls, gas, all of that, and then 2.5 hours back. And my wife would said, how much did they pay you to come down? I was like, none, I went down there. She was like, free ain't free. Right, because that money you spent in gas, that money you spent in food, that money you spent in toll, and the hours that I had to go pick up the kids because you was on the road doing good things for somebody else, came out of our account, right? And I was like, I hear you, it'll never happen again. So many times I don't even get into those conversations. I just give it to her and let her deal with it. This way I don't have to hear about it. But what it led me to think about in talking to you, and I only have a few minutes, but I'm gonna try to fly through everything to get as many concepts to you as possible. Thank you so much for having me to come and speak to you about fatherhood. It's such an essential and important conversation as we work with parents, youth, families, and our community. But the way that you think and feel about dads is rooted in the foundation of what you know about dads. And much of what we all know about dads is from our own personal experiences, right? So we frame how we think about men based on our own fathers. We frame how we work with men based on what we heard, what we read in the newspaper, saw on the 6 o'clock news, saw in our neighbors' houses, and those kinds of things. So we frame conversations around what men are. And it's ironic that we do that because we frame it about everybody else's men, but we don't put that same frame around the men who love us. Come on, y'all, as my pastor would say, I'm preaching better than y'all amening right now, right? Because most of what you would say about men, you wouldn't say about your sons. Much of what you say about men, you wouldn't say about your grandfathers. Some of you would, right? Most of what you say about men, you wouldn't say about your cousins, right? Your pastors, other men in your church, coaches, teachers. So this is not an all thing. We recognize that some folks do have challenges, and we have to recognize those challenges. But father absence is so critical to our community because father presence is so valuable. Nobody's writing this down. This is quotable stuff, y'all. I'm giving y'all gems. You got it? Tweet me. The reason that our communities are in the way that they are is not because of what we describe as the father absence piece, but it is because the presence of fathers is so valuable that when it is missing for our children, they don't know what to do with that. I submit to you today that there is no such thing as a fatherless child. I'm gonna get ready to blow your minds now, right? There is no such thing as a fatherless child. 100% of all biological children born on the face of this earth, even if they was born in a test tube, has a father. The question isn't if fathers exist, the question is where they exist. But if you never ask the question where, you make the assumption that they don't exist. The problem with that narrative is when you begin to tell your child that they're fatherless, somewhere along the line, they begin to believe that their father doesn't exist. But all of what they're going through and they're dealing with, that painful hole in their heart, is as a result of the existence of their father, but the absence of their father. Does that make sense? Right? And so when you're looking at our communities and you're looking at why our children are acting the way they act, it is because we keep telling them that they're fatherless children. And their heart and everything about their aura is telling them, I'm not fatherless. I may hate this cat to death, but I hate him so much because he exists, but he's absent, right? So how many of you know that you can be a father, be in the house all day long, pay all the bills, show up every day, don't womanize, don't drink, don't do any of those things, work hard, and still serve up a measure of father absence for their children? How many of you know that? Because they pour absolutely nothing emotional into their children. Fatherhood is not all about presence, right? It's about engagement. It's about commitment. It's about connecting. It's about transparency. There's always two truths in the house: what we know about parents and what parents know about themselves, right? And as kids, we have to recognize that in many of our households, there are two truths. And the best households function when the kids know both, right? Now, at 2 years old, if you're a single mom, tell them the 2-year-old truth. 10 years old, tell them the 10-year-old truth. 18-year-old, tell them the 18-year-old truth. You don't have to worry about them when they get older, because at the family reunion, everybody else gonna tell them the truth, right? So you better get your truth in before that family reunion show up, or the cookout, or all those kinds of things, because there's one of your cousins that can't wait to tell them about their daddy and their mama. They're gonna tell the whole story, the way that they heard it from their parents, right? And so this is our vision for FI. We are always clear about this in our understanding so that people kind of know that just because we're a fatherhood agency does not mean that we don't love our mothers. We do this work because we have a concern for our mothers. And we also have a concern for our children. But our mechanism in doing this strengthening work is through fathers. I get to do that. You know why? Because God gave me that calling. He said to me, speak to the hearts of men, right? Help men understand who they are, their essentialness and their importance in the life of their children, because I guarantee if you get that man strong, everybody else around them will be strong, right? Indirectly and directly. But what we believe is that all children should have the love and care, emotional and financial support of both parents, regardless of whether the parents are hooked up or not. I know that says live together, but I'm trying to relate to y'all. Y'all understand what hooked up mean, right? Y'all ain't so old, y'all don't know how being hooked up, right? Fathers should take responsibility for their children and have the necessary resources to fulfill their parenting roles. It's not good enough just to demand that fathers do X, Y, and Z if you're not going to do anything to help them do X, Y, and Z, right? Policies and programs should affirm and promote responsible fatherhood. That's important for the work that we do. So we need to make sure that the service industry, the social workspace and field is doing all of the things that is necessary to make sure that fathers are equipped. And I'm really, guys, struggling with this thing. Get me to the next slide. Take me to the next one. There we go. Click me one time. Yeah, click me all the way to 6, 5, stop there, because I want to go through these real quick. So these are foundational elements of the conversation around fatherhood, right? That when we do, so we do a training called standing in the gap, single mothers raising boys. And the reason that we do that workshop, the reason that I wanted to do that workshop for single moms, particularly as it relates to boys, is because when I speak to a room full of moms, what I always say to them is, you don't have the only perspective of being a single mom. Some of y'all don't get that. You do not have the only perspective of being a single mom, because I was a boy raised by a single mom, and I can tell you some things about her that she don't know. Just blew some of y'all minds all the way up. Yeah, as boys, we have figured you out, right? And we know how to push the buttons, which is why we get into our adulthood, is why we use the tactics that we've used on moms, on other girls. You are our training ground, right? For every single mom, there's a single dad. Why? The term single mom is not a term that denotes parenting status. It's a term that denotes marital status. If you look at it in unwed households, they're talking about single moms, right? So if it denotes marital status, for every single mom, there's a single dad. It's just that we've empowered the term single mom to mean something greater than what it means to be a single dad. And so dads who are not married, who are single dads, don't even speak to the fact that I'm single too. She's not the only single person in this relationship. I'm single too. Everything she has to do, if we're doing it equal and right, I got to do as well. So we got to start thinking about this term differently. I just spoke to you about every child has a father, right? It's not that he doesn't exist. He does exist. It's where he exists. Number 3, moms and dads love equally, however, love differently. My love for my kids just look different from what my love for my wife gives to my kids, right? I told the example some weeks ago, last summer, my son twisted his ankle on the AAU court. And how many of you got kids in sports, right? So he twists his ankle on the court. My wife and I are sitting together. She's louder than I am, I might add. And we're sitting there, and KJ falls, and he grabs his ankle. What's the next thing that happened? Say that louder so they can hear. My baby. What did I do? Sit down. Because we've had a conversation, and he understands the difference between being hurt and injured. If he's hurt, if he's injured, he's going to look over and he's going to shake his head, which is a signal to me that it's more than just him being hurt. If he's hurt, he's going to grimace, and in a minute, he's going to pop up and he's going to limp off or he's going to walk off, but he's going to do it on his own motor, not with you holding him, rubbing his ankle with all his boys sitting on the bench looking at him. That's not going to happen today, right? That's not going to happen. But when we get home, talking about how the love looks differently, when he gets home, how does my wife's love look like? Because he's still hurt now, right? Come on now. Because men understand, right? I'm saying y'all the training ground. Listen to me now, y'all the training ground. Boys understand, oh, I'm gonna milk this hurt till I can't milk it no more. And she plays right into it. Oh, let me put your feet up on this pillow. What you want to watch on the show? You want to watch the game? Where's the remote control? What you want to eat? The whole rest of the house stops because everything is focused on this kid's ankle, right? And then when I walk in and his ankle, and I know it's hurting, I'm saying, now what do I do? Because I'm dad, because my love looks different. Get out the way. And I know he's not injured because what does he do? He laughs. And I was like, all right, I see you, bro. I see you. I see your Shaolin technique is good. But, right? But that's when it looks different. You can compensate for an absent dad, but he cannot be replaced. Mentorship programs do an awesome job at mentoring. but there is no part of mentoring that replaces dads for these kids. As great of a mentor as you can be, that kid is still going to thirst for his father because he now sees an example of what he has always wanted his father to be. So every time he spends time with that mentor, his father is right here. It's right here, right? And so the other place is when you're a stepdad, mind your steps when you're being a great dad. Because if you overstep into that space, as Charles Barkley said, I guarantee your child will make you understand very quickly that you're not their father. How many of you heard that? You're not my father. Stay over here. Do all you can do from over here, but don't step in that man's space in doing that. So that's number 4. And number 5, a father can be the best dad in the world, but he can't be a mom. Let's say it together. A mom can be the best mom in the world, but she can't be I don't have to explain that one to you, right? Father types, working with fathers in our program, and this is something that you all need to kind of understand in your various areas and working with families and particularly working with fathers. I've taken our fathers and I have realized that they fall into one of these 5 categories. The first one is that they're unaware. These are fathers who may or may not understand the responsibilities of fatherhood and are unaware of their support needs. They're clueless, they don't know. Somebody told them how to have sex, they had sex, the baby is showing up, they don't know what their responsibilities are, they don't know nothing, they don't know where to go, they don't know what to ask for, they don't know nothing. These are clean slate dads. They come in and you got to start from square one and pull them all the way through. And the interesting thing about these dads is not only do you have to teach them about fatherhood, but more importantly, you got to teach them about responsibility because they've never been taught to be responsible. So you can't tell every man or woman to be responsible if they've never been taught to be responsible. Does that make sense? General needs. Fathers who understand the responsibilities of fatherhood, however, are looking for general needs. They're coming to you because they just want to know how to be a better dad. They want to know how to spend more time with their children. They want to know how to better their relationship with the mothers of their children. They don't have any specific needs, but they just in general want to be a better dad. Many of these dads are probably married. They probably have a great relationship with the mothers of their children, but still for some reason don't feel that they're doing everything they can do for their child, right? So they have general needs. Specific need dads are dads who understand the responsibilities of fatherhood. However, they have a specific need to be met. And as agencies, you have to kind of understand what is within your mission to serve these dads and where your partnerships should be so that when they have a specific need that you can't adhere to, you have a partner to send them to, right? Because most of them are gonna come into your space because they see that you do fatherhood work, but they're gonna have an issue around child support, legitimation, housing, substance abuse, parenting, all those kinds of things, and you may not do those things. So if you're gonna serve fathers, you also gotta work just as diligently at looking at partners who can serve the specific needs of dads where you can't or is not within your mission. Does that make sense? Fathers in crisis. These are fathers who understand the responsibilities of fatherhood and they're in current personal turmoil. These dads just lost their job. Child support is in a check. Their relationship with the mother of their child is just crazy. They got thrown out last night. They in crisis and they need emergency help, right? And you have to be set up as an agency to deal with this kind of father. We had one not too long ago. One of our better fathers in our program came out of incarceration because unfortunately, the mom passed away while he was incarcerated on his way out. He came out of prison, got custody of his daughter. In the midst of this, got hooked up with the new girl. So he calls us in a panic one night. I'm homeless, I don't have anywhere to stay, blah, 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 blah. We're thinking him and the child is on the street. So my staff goes into, let's find a hotel, let's find this. In the morning at 10 o'clock, you come into the office, we'll figure out how to help you. He comes into the office the next day, here's what we found out. The new girl kicked him out. She kept the baby with her. So what we learned about him, because he says, I need housing. What our conversation to him was, you don't have a housing problem, you have a communication relationship problem. If I can straighten out your communication and your relationship problems, you won't have a housing problem. Thus, your child won't have a housing problem. You got to get your relationship right so that your child doesn't have a housing problem. Because right now, you got a housing problem, your child doesn't. Does that make sense? This is at the level that we have to talk to many of these fathers. And this is this father, the brick wall father. Fathers who are hurt or pressured enough to ask for help. However, nothing you do for them is good enough. These are these fathers that come in and they really want to tell everybody that they're looking and seeking help, and then all the help you give them is not good enough for them. Got you. We want more money. Can you give me, we had one guy, remember this guy, Lawrence? He was a grandfather, but he had custody of his two grandchildren. He had a sports car, one of them power cars, and it got repoed. It got repoed on the street. And he was calling us to get his car out of repo so he could take his kids to school. And we were like, no, well, we can do this. We got cars, we got Marta cars, we got all these things we can help you with, we can get you more stay. No, I want my 32, Mustang out of the repo. That's what I would like, dude, that's not what we do. We're not doing that. But that's that brick wall dad. Like, he wants it the way he wants it, only the way he wants it, and he's very difficult to serve, and he serves a block between him and his children. And there's another kind of dad that's not on this list that I left off, and that's that dad that doesn't care about nothing. Him, children, world, he's a very difficult dad. That's a small amount of dads, but unfortunately, that particular dad is how we frame all fathers, right? And you see what I did with him. That dad is not even worthy of my list, right? And that's the amount of worthiness he should have in our conversation. Quickly, intentional historical design. Apparently, y'all got to bring me back so I can settle into stuff, because I hate going fast because I feel like I'm leaving stuff. But when you look at this list, if you look on the right-hand side, if you look at how programs have been designed for mothers and children, if you look at child support, domestic violence prevention, TANF courts, all of those things on the right-hand side, all of those things were created to serve her and the child, right? If you look at the things that are next to dad, domestic violence intervention, employment, expungement, homelessness, legitimation, mental health, substance abuse services, all of these programs weren't designed for his well-being. All of these programs were designed for their well-being. There's nothing in here for him specifically. The goals and outcomes of all of these programs is how is he impacting her well-being, right? What we're looking at doing is making sure and understanding that if you create programs that are designed specifically for him, he's going to ultimately impact her. But if you keep going around working with him with the hopes that he's going to help her in these spaces, he's not. In fact, these things right here, he's going to flee from because he understands what they're for. He knows that they're not for him, right? I would love to go through this one with you, but we're not going to do that. I will say this one real quickly. Our progressive change model for fathers, write this down because it's critical to understand. We believe at Fathers Incorporated that if I can change how he feels, I can change how he thinks. If I can change how he thinks, I can change what he does. Most programs are designed to work with what they're doing. Most laws, policies, and those things are designed to work at what we see on the surface. But rarely do we go deeper to want to know how he's thinking and how he's feeling. But if you are an agency that is concerned about what he's doing, you're going to be just as concerned, if not more concerned, with how he's feeling. Right? How many of y'all got that? I would take more time with that if I had more time. We're going to get through this one. How many of you know these dads? Right? All good guys. All good guys. Because we have this definition of what a great dad is, right? However, there's this thing called the law of belief. It's within Brian Tracy's book, The Psychology of Achievement. And the law of belief says that there are two habits that we must allow our minds to let go. One of them is this thing called homeostasis, and that is our need to hold on to things. And the second one is psychosaurosis, which is refusal to change. And most of what we go through with respect to our fathers and how we think about fathers is because we have what he says about the law of belief is that anything that you believe deeply in becomes your reality. Anything that you believe in, you put your heart in, you believe it deeply, it becomes your reality. If you look at the political landscape and the advertisement that is out there today is right at the heart in what people believe. Because anything contrary to what they believe, they repel against. Right? So when you think about dads, if in your mind you really believe that dads are no good, it's very difficult for you to work with dads. But those two things that you need to let go in your mind are the two things that's holding you from changing your belief. Does that make sense? Let me put my hat right here because if y'all want to put an offering down here, just walk up, put it in the hat. So, and the reason that we think the way we do think about dads is because this is the image of dads when we think about dads. Right? How many of you know these people? Al Bundy, Ghost, Lucius, Darth Vader, Tony Soprano. Don Corleone, right? Homer, Brian, right? We think about them, but who's to say that even within the life that they live, that they don't love their children? Because if you ask their children what kind of fathers they are, you're going to get a different answer from their children about what kind of father they are than you're going to get from society, which asks the question, what kind of man are they? Right? That's most of our men. We look at who they are and we describe what kind of man they are, and we relate that to what we believe the kind of father they are. And oftentimes those two things don't match up, particularly if it's a historical thing. And I'm gonna get out of this and get you to another concept real quick. Father functioning, fatherhood stress impact. So if you look on the right-hand side, you see involvement. The top of that slide says healthy, the bottom says unhealthy. We are always looking at how healthy or unhealthy the father functioning is. When a father is stressed, his father functioning goes down. He's unhealthy. The way that you even this out is you add resources. The more resources you add, the less stress he is, right? What you want is you want your resources for him to outweigh his stress. The way that you understand his stress is understanding how he feels, because he's never going to tell you what is the cause of his stress. Why? Because he doesn't even know how to articulate it. Dr. Yana Van Sant says one of the biggest issues that men have in general is that they don't have a language to describe the issues and the emotions that they go through. And then, since I don't have any time left, this is what I want you to see. Over the last 2 years, our fire program from HHS, we've served over now. We've graduated 300 fathers from our program in Metro Atlanta. Those 300 fathers account for 728 children. We're doing our children work. We're doing our children work. We're doing our children work. We're just doing it through fathers. Because if I can get these fathers right, 728 children in this Metro Atlanta area are going to fare better because their father now understands the importance of being fathers, right? These are not duplicative photos. These are photos of every cohort that we've done in the last year. Fulton County, we're starting now to serve fathers in Fulton County Jail. This one here was the last one, significantly, that Morehouse is here. Morehouse School of Medicine. We're going to talk about Morehouse. We have decided in our program that we're going to now host all of our graduations at Morehouse. Why are we going to host them at Morehouse? Because there's a historical perspective, because, you know, not that this is the only cast, we cast a wide net out there. We have white guys that are in our cohorts, Latino guys. We've had one trans individual in our cohort. So we serve all, but in Metro Atlanta, 98% of the fathers that come through our door are African American. And what we decided to do is, the reason that we wanted to host the graduation at Morehouse is we wanted to make a connection between the excellence that they're doing with educating Black boys and our excellence in what we're doing with educating Black fathers. Many of them, these fathers, have never been on the Morehouse campus. Many more of these fathers have never graduated or completed anything, right? So think about them looking at that in their closet, that robe with Fathers Incorporated on. Then lastly, y'all know the QR code, get that. That's my podcast. If you want to hear more of my conversation and talking to others around the country about this thing we call fatherhood, go to iamdadpodcast.com, sign up.